Hello, everybody. I am Chibi Joe. I have a coffee, and this is the next episode of Writer's Journey. We're going to continue on through our lovely fan fiction section of my life. I'm not against fan fiction. I think fan fictions can definitely help you learn to write characters and kind of structure stories. As long as you are willing to actually analyze the characters that you're writing about, and actually put forth effort, because there's a lot that people don't put effort in, and they're shit, but more fun to read because they're shit. I have no problems throwing any sort of like insults like that, because I started writing too, and that writing is shit. The only thing that I will say I've always been good at, and this will segue into what we're talking about. I've always been really good with ideas. I've always been good with concepts. Today we're going to be talking about my Soul Eater fanfiction that I wrote. And the really big theme around it was establishing this new, different way of using your body and your energy for attacks. So, in Soul Eater, you used Soul Wavelength, right? Well, that was for the weapons and meisters. They would use their soul wavelength, they would work together, and they would perform these extraordinary techniques. With with my book, I decided to try and okay, well, what else could we do? This was before I watched RWBY, where aura was a big thing. Like RWBY is very well known for aura and all that. I didn't want that. I didn't want to copy anything, so this was actually written probably a year before I started watching RWBY. So I had no idea RWBY existed, because again, this was before I had internet. So I was kind of in this void, and none of my friends were watching it. Most of my friends started watching RWBY because I started watching RWBY. So there we go. So the thing with what I wanted to do is I wanted to present aura, and what aura is, it's basically your instead of using your soul, if I remember correctly, it was more of an environmental thing and more of a essence thing of who you are. And there was these towns, because there was Death City, and so I'm okay, so aura and then Death City was my two mental prompts of what I wanted to do. And so there was also, I made these other cities, but these cities were elemental cities. So there was the city of dark, light, ice, water, lightning, fire, earth, air. I think that's all of them. And these cities were necessary because they kept balance. Our main character, or the character that I made, was named Ezekiel Nocturne. And he was a prince of the City of Darkness at the time of the show. This is based after the anime, because that's all I had known up to that point was the anime. I had not known the manga yet. So what ended up happening is when the Kishin happened, their father died, and his older brother Joel took the throne, as he should have. But then the madness wavelength, because of Arachne, spread, and that affected his brother. The City of Darkness was really close, like, because of like who they are. They're very close to madness, or like more susceptible to the madness wavelength for whatever reason. Because he's the main character, and I said so. Ezekiel was not affected, and so he just kind of went meh. But his brother was affected, and he tried causing a war. Ezekiel tried to stop that war, and unfortunately was exiled. He was also like given like a horrible brand across his eye that like halved his power, because he was extremely strong and formidable. But this like brand mark basically absorbed like half of his power. And so he was always at half strength. Until he was like extremely upset. So he goes to Death City because he's like, well, shit, my brother's still going to try to start this war with Death City. So he sneaks into Death City. He gets found by Death the Kid, was taken to Lord Death, and essentially was put under like a form of house arrest. And so then he met the main characters. Long story short, he falls in love with Tsubaki. Tsubaki falls in love with him. There is a really nice moment I liked where you meet his ex-girlfriend, who is a member of the City of Light. And she's like, I really don't want to do this. And he's like, I don't either, so let's not. And she's like, yeah, but if I don't, I get killed by your brother. And he's like, you know what? That's fair. So then they fight. She ends up getting captured because he's like, I'm not going to kill her. He's like, she doesn't want to do this. She did this because she would die otherwise. I'm better than my brother. Why would I kill her? So she ends up being like imprisoned and never brought up again. I must have like totally forgot about that character. Because normally, like even back then, I was good like at bringing stuff back up. But I was not with this story for some reason. This was actually finished. I actually did finish this story. So there was also a really cool fight between him and Blackstar, because Blackstar's like, I'm the most important. I write Blackstar as basically aromantic. Like he has no urge to he has no urge in seeing Tsubaki as a like romantic partner. I've always seen like where there was like a weird sibling relationship between them, which is very fun. Nice little parallel between her and Masamune. That was his name, right? Masamune. I need to rewatch Soul Eater. It's such a good anime. Anyways, so Blackstar, and Ezekiel fight, right? Blackstar and Ezekiel fight. I think Blackstar wins. And Tsubaki pretty much just says, just because he's my boyfriend doesn't mean you're not important to me. You're still my partner. So that cured that confrontation. I also, the final battle happens where like, basically like 50 people from each city attacked. Because I didn't want like a full army behind me, right? Like I wanted it to be reasonable where Death City could survive. Unfortunately, one character didn't survive. I killed off Blackstar. Mainly because I'm not a huge fan of Blackstar, but also because I thought narratively it worked. So then Black Star dies, and then Ezekiel becomes Tsubaki's new Meister, and they with her cursed sword form, his power like increased like 50-fold. He fights his brother, and he ends up putting his brother in probably the coldest thing that I had ever done up to that point. It's called the Dark Prison. It's a very like taboo technique where you basically just trap the mind within itself, and the person just slowly dies as the brain slowly shuts down. It's like, oh. The question is, was I okay back then? I think I was actually better than I am today. So I don't know why I wrote something so effed up. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why, because I was more okay. That I was more okay going to those dark pits within my mind. Would I rewrite this? Yeah. If I decided to write more fan fiction, I would totally rewrite this. I would change the story. I don't know if I would have the Ezekiel-Tsubaki relationship, because I've kind of, outside of a few exceptions, I've kind of like pushed away from that. I've kind of taken my own a little bit. But do I really, really like the story? I think the story was pretty fun. I remember having fun writing it. I actually remember going to sleep and waking up excited to write this story. And I think it's a great story? Not particularly, but it's a story that I was proud of back then. And if I reread it all the way through, I would probably be proud of it now. Because I did a lot of really cool things. The concept of aura being like an elemental essence within your body, and that technically anyone can learn it. It doesn't use the same techniques that Soul Wavelength did. They were like two sides of the same coin. Which is how I would introduce techniques or abilities. You'll see that again in my, you see that again in like the Blue Exorcist story and Naruto, the Naruto fan fiction. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like I remember writing it and having a blast with it. There was actually going to be a sequel to it, where you met Ezekiel's mother, who like runs this cult. The issue is I couldn't figure out like how to make it work. Plus, it was complicated because I had to come up with like, okay, so why is Ethan not, because Ethan's technically the King of Darkness. Why isn't Ethan at the City of Darkness? And I never came up with a solution to that. So I think what I would do is I would change, or not Ethan, Ezekiel, sorry. Ethan's a kind of an updated version of Ezekiel that's made for like a superhero universe I was trying to come up with a few times. Ethan Nocturne. Sometimes I also call him Ethan Noctis. It depends on like, I think Nocturne sounds better. In the comments below, see what you guys like better, Noctis or Nocturne. Nocturne sounds more like Halloween themed, and I kind of like that. I kind of dig it. Dig it. But yeah, no, like I really, really liked doing this story. I would probably rewrite it again if I was given a chance to. I think the entire story would be structured different. I would change Ezekiel's rank within the City of Darkness, where he was more of just an assassin, because that's kind of what he was. He was kind of like an assassin. He was also kind of like a general, or at least like a leader of like an elite squad. And I'm like, okay, so did that elite squad just say, fuck you? Is that what happened? Like, I never really dove deep into like who he was before Death City. Other than my brother sucks. Like, that was like the only thing that ran his character forward. So I would probably put a lot more emphasis on like who he is, and definitely who he was, comparatively to who he is during the story. Because he was just an exile. Like, if you're going to go with rank, he's nobody because he was an exile. Who was he before that he needed to be exiled? That his brother was afraid enough of who he was that he had to have been exiled. I would say what I would probably do is have his brother during the Madness Wavelength take over the City of Darkness, where it was actually ran by someone else, and then he usurped the throne from them. And then used that authority to stop his brother from doing what Ezekiel needed to do in order to bring back order to the City of Darkness, and then exile him. I could also just write this as an original story and just have the City of Elements. And it's just like trying to prevent this oncoming war between the elements, which would cause a cataclysmic event. So I could also do that, just take out the Soul Eater elements. Because honestly, as much as I loved this idea, I don't feel like the aura I feel like aura and soul wavelength work together, like the concepts, but I don't think the City of Elements and Death City really work. I would have to like really figure out a way to make it work. I would almost have to write a book talking about the City of Elements and then write the book in regards to the Soul Eater universe. Like, it would not work. As much as I would love it to work, I don't think it would work. But that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed. I actually am starting to do these stand-up recordings. Not stand-up as in comedy, but stand-up as I am actually physically standing. And I have my coffee, so I can drink my coffee while doing these. I actually kind of enjoy it more. I feel like I'm a lot more animated. I feel like my thought process is a little more free. I also just, I don't know, I like standing. I guess it's because I sit all the time when I do streaming, or like when I'm writing or anything like that, that getting a chance to like stand and talk is very nice. But anyways, guys, that's all I have. Have an awesome day and a good night.